Hello, everybody. I am Keaton of Kinetic Catholic Ministries here for season 13, episode 13. I've kind of talked about how since the switch to Kinetic, we're trying to branch out a little bit. And I think that while it's good for you guys to see my face every week and to hear me talk, I think that it's also important that we hear from other young people. And so here I have from my school, Michael Minnich, who is someone who's absolutely devout in his faith. And I think that again, even though it's like baby steps when progressing what Kinetic Ministry does and expanding beyond just a weekly YouTube video, I think that having more young people on is very, very important, getting to hear a little bit of their story and how they are so devout in their faith. So thank you for coming on, Mikey.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So Mikey, just as a little bit of an introduction, we go to school together, which is how we know each other, but how, because you're someone, and I invited you on because you're someone who's so devout in your faith on a day-to-day basis, and everybody knows it, right? Like that's something about you that you're not afraid to hide. So how did you get so into your faith? Have you always been Catholic? Were you cradle Catholic? And kind of what made you passionate about Catholicism to begin with?
It's a very good question. So I've always been Catholic. I was raised Catholic, so I am a cradle Catholic. But ever since I was a little kid, I always knew God was real, and I always loved Him to the best of my ability for being that young, and my little self just loving God. But I was cradle Catholic. My parents raised me Catholic. We always went to Mass on Sunday. We always went to Mass as a family, prayed during meals and stuff like that. And before bed, we would always pray. And then as my faith grew on, I kept on growing with my love for God, and my faith kept on growing. So I just kept on going on and on and on. And then I've hit the point in my life where my love is only growing for God. And that's all I ever wanted to happen. So that's my backstory. There have been rough times in my life, but I've always loved God through those rough times. No matter what happens, I've always loved God to the best of my ability. And I'm a sinner, and I know I make mistakes, but I try to rebound and come back from those.
That's awesome. So with you being so devout in your faith, something that I feel like should be brought up is because it's the case for a lot of people watching, is you're also an athlete at a school. You're a football captain for our school. And so like myself, like obviously, and I've talked about it on here, I've had my struggles with balancing being a practicing Catholic and then also being as involved in school life as possible, because I think we can agree, like it's safe to say our generation isn't the most Catholic right now. So for a football player, right, for an athlete, how do you kind of manage to keep that devout Catholicism, keep your faith strong, and not just time for athletics, but like kind of the social life that comes with athletics? You know what I'm trying to say? How are you able to balance that?
So I balance it by just surrendering to God's will and putting it all in His hands. No matter what, He always figures it out for me. All I have to do is say yes. But some of the ways I do it is I constantly pray throughout the day. I'm always praying, and I kiss my cross, and every time I kiss my cross, I say, I love you, God. And it's just a quick second prayer just to let God know that I love Him, and people catch me doing it all the time, and I don't mind that at all. But with school and football, it is really hard to balance because I wake up early in the morning to go to football, and then I go to school all day, and then I go to football, and then I get back home. So that's why I figured out a way to just pray to Him throughout the day, always making special time for Him, because when God is my number one priority, and I'm always going to keep Him that way. And when God's your number one priority, you find a way to set time aside to make Him a daily part of your life. And he like I said, he figures everything out. All I do is say, I love you. I'm going to do whatever you say. I'm going to make time for you. I'm the captain on the football team, so I'm always trying to be the best role model I can be. But God figures it out for me. All I have to do is say yes.
So then is that kind of something that you would say to a young person who says like, hey, I don't have time to pray. I'm balancing all of this. It's that well, you don't necessarily need a long period of set aside time. You can do it throughout your day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm. It can be short. It can be long. Prayer comes in many different shapes and sizes, and for each person, it's different.
Right.
one of the things about me is that I'm always thinking about God in my head, and the actions I say and the things I do, I always think about Him. I try to put Him first in everything. If I'm going to say something, I want to make sure it's something that would honor Him and respect Him. If I'm going to do something, I want to make sure it's something that I can do to honor and, again, love and respect Him. But I know for those out there, and I've struggled with it too, finding time to set time aside for God. That is very hard to do, and I'm with you in the same boat. But just try to pray about it. Just pray about it, even if it's just for a minute or just for a second. Say, I love you, God, and I know it's hard and I'm struggling, but I love you. So, sorry.
You're good.
Just, I understand. I'm in the same boat too. It's really hard to find time, but just make Him your number one priority and just surrender your will to His. I'm going to say surrender a lot because it's one of the things I struggle with most. Just surrendering my will to God and letting Him take the wheel, letting Him take control. And the truth is that He's gotten me through everything in my life every time I've done that. So that's the best way to do it. Just surrender to God, and He's going to make time. He's going to find time for you.
That's absolutely beautiful. So what would you say to someone, because I've heard this too, right? And it's always kind of a difficult response. I've struggled with it myself, as I'm sure you have, to someone who maybe they're just kind of starting their prayer life. Because again, all of us watching are going to be in very different areas. Maybe we have an amazing prayer life. Maybe we don't have one at all. Regardless, what would you say to someone who might be kind of struggling to start that prayer life? Simply because, not just because of time, but because of distractions, right? Like things like our cell phone, social media. I think we can agree on, like, our generation maybe has more distractions than any other generation before us. So distractions surrounding prayer, but also while we're praying, like the tendency for our mind to wander. You know what I mean? Like, have you had difficulties with that? And if so, how have you kind of been able to work through them?
So that is a very real and true thing that's happening to everyone, because it happens to me too. Like, I'll be praying and my mind just wanders off. And I'm like, sorry, God, I did not mean for that to happen.
Right.
But what the best thing I can say is that just one of the great saints says, do small things with great love. And just prayer doesn't have to be so enormous. Like, you see these saints pray like 6 hours a day and stuff. That's awesome, and we're going to have moments in our life when we're able to do that. But like right now, as a young kid, me personally, on the football team, during school, family life and stuff, I wish I had 6 hours a day to pray.
Right.
But what I say is just do what you can do, and God will see that, and He will be happy. You can have a person that prays 12 minutes a day, because that's all they have, but they give all those 12 minutes to God. God is just as happy as a person who would pray 6 hours a day, just because they had the ability to get the 6 hours. You may have not had the ability to get the 6 hours, but you still were able to pray and just offering everything you had to God. For instance, just money-wise, like I was raised to, you always give 10% of your earnings to charities and stuff like that, to the church and stuff. Well, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because prayer is kind of like the same thing with money. If a woman has 10 cents left over, that's her 10%, and she gives that all away, God is just as happy as a person who gives away $1,000, because that's their 10%. God doesn't mind. He loves us so much. The fact that we even go to Him and talk to Him just makes Him so happy. It really does. It just makes Him so happy and wonderful, and He's pleased with us if we just give our all to Him. So it doesn't matter what amount of time you have or how much you pray, just when you have the chance, take that opportunity and do it, and God is happy to hear from you no matter what. Another thing is that even when you're mad and upset with God, He still wants to hear you. I read once that a great saint would get mad at God, and I personally can testify to this, because there was a moment in my life when I was mad at God. I was like, God, why is my life still like this? Why isn't anything getting better? My parents divorced and stuff like that. But this saint would actually scream and curse at God and blame Him for everything and stuff like that. But God was just happy with the fact that she was talking to Him.
Right.
even if you're upset with God, God just wants you to go to him with your problems. And you have to trust us, and you have to trust God most of all. He's going to take care of everything. That's all he's ever done. That's all he's going to do. And I can testify through the speed bumps and the bad moments in my life to even right now. He is taking care of me throughout it all. So give what you can to God, and he'll be happy and pleased no matter what that is. If it's 12 minutes to 6 hours, he'll be happy no matter what.
That's beautiful. So, okay, so another thing, and part of the reason why I brought you on here is absolutely this idea of being so devout in your prayer life, but also being a Catholic by example. You know what I'm trying to say?
Mm-hmm.
Like living in a way that anybody who knows Mikey is going to know that he's Catholic, which is a great thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not just by what you say, but by your actions as well. And I think one of the reasons why people in our generation sometimes hesitate to do that is a fear of judgment, right? From their peers, from society in general, that tries to tell us that praying all the time, leading by example as a Catholic isn't a normal thing, even though it should be. So what would you say to a young person or to anybody who might be struggling to be as devout in their faith or to express that devoutness for fear of that judgment?
So that's a very good question. And it's something that I've had to face as well. So what you're trying to ask is, how can we show it without like being embarrassed or stuff like that?
Right. Well, because there are some people who because it takes courage, right? It takes
Yes.
courage to want to step up and let others know that you are Catholic. And there are some people who might hesitate to do that. Again, I've even gone through this. I know you have. Because of fear of judgment. How have you been able to sort of push through that with understanding that at the end of the day, like other people's judgment doesn't matter. It's the judgment of God that matters.
I understand what you're saying now. So
Right.
What helps me through it is the fact that I love God so much to the point where he's the number one person, number one thing in my life. And I'm going to put him above all. If someone were to ask me something or do something, I'd always think about God first. But the point I'm trying to make is that since I love God so much and I put him as first, I really don't mind what other people think.
Right.
I think about God, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm doing this for God. I don't care what others think. They may give me dirty looks. They may question me about my faith. Because there's some things I do. Like, there's a statue at our school of Mary, and I always go and touch her hand and stuff. And you know, people walk by, and I'm sure they're all thinking their thoughts. But
right.
When God is first in your life, you really don't mind what other people think, because you just only care about what he thinks. You want to please him and love him. The best way to do this is to just put him first and trust and don't really think about what other people think. For instance, if I were to get on my knees and pray in the middle of the cafeteria, which I've done before, you just focus on God in the moment and just know everything's going to be okay. And some of the greatest Christians were persecuted for their faith, but I mean, they just love God so much that they don't mind if they die or if they get hurt or get yelled at and stuff. And you know, I've been asked to stop, and you just don't stop. Just keep on loving God the way you want to love him, because each person's love for God is different.
Right.
I know it's really hard, and there are times when I even catch myself. I'm like, well, I'm about to do this in public. Are you sure you want to do this? And I'm like, yes, I want to do this because I love God, and I don't care where we're at in the world. I'm always going to do it. You know, I'm not very popular. People know me well, but I'm not in like the popular friend groups and stuff.
Right.
And I don't think I'm going to ever get like a super, like, this is probably the most public I've ever been, to be honest.
Right.
And it's really special. Thank you for inviting me. But thank you. And it's just, God will always take care of me, no matter what. And, you know, I just want to share my faith with others. I want other people to see God through me, you know, because God works through me. And before we came on this interview, I was praying in my truck, and I was just like, God, please give me the words to say, to speak truthfully and speak about you. And he said, Michael, just speak with your heart, and I will use the Holy Spirit and speak through you. So, and I'm a little bit nervous. I'm not going to lie. I'm nervous, so I'm stumbling a little bit, but I'm happy to share my faith with others. That's one thing. I'm happy to show people, hey, I love God. I'm going to wear this cross on my chest because this is the greatest symbol of love there has ever been.
Right.
Jesus died on the cross. There's no symbol of love, no person greater of love than that moment, than who he is and what he's done. And so I love God, and I don't mind doing things in public because I love him first. He's my number one priority, and I want to make sure that I just want to let him know that I'm always there for him, and I can do whatever it takes to just love him, no matter where I'm at, no matter what I'm doing.
That's beautiful. That's absolutely amazing. So Mikey, as sort of the last question to round out the interview, a little bit of a change of tone, but just something that whenever I have a guest, I like to ask this question. If you had to choose, because it may be difficult, who is your favorite saint and why?
So that's a very good and tough question because I love so many great saints.
Right.
I consider them my holy family, each and every one of them. But Mary is the queen of the angels and saints, and she has her own title. So in my love life, I love God above all, and my love for him is only growing, and it will never stop growing. I tell him that every single day. After him, I love Mary. I really love her a lot, but I think of her more as the queen of the angels and saints, and not, I mean, she is definitely a saint. She's the only human that's ever not sinned besides Jesus.
Right.
And then under her, I think I really like, my favorite saint would probably be Saint Michael the Archangel. And he's actually my confirmation saint. And the reason why I chose him is not because we have the same name, but because of who he is. He's an archangel and he's a saint. And that's why I picked him. Because in my list of saints, I had like Saint Patrick, Saint Peter, Saint Nicholas, Saint Christopher, and a bunch of others. But I picked Michael because he's an archangel and he's a saint and he's a soldier. And my whole life, I wanted to be a soldier. And I told God, I'm like, please help me get into the military. Please help me get into the military. And I chose St. Michael the Archangel because he's the patron saint of soldiers.
Right.
And I love that. And he's always with God. He's appeared in both world wars. He's truly a great guy, and I love him. And he's not the typical soldier. He's a soldier that praises and loves God, doesn't think of himself. He just carries out with the mission and stuff. But I talked to God one time about this, and through my medical background and stuff, there's a good chance I probably won't be able to get into the military, the United States military. But what I talked to God in prayer, and he says, Michael, I want you to be a soldier. I want you to be in the military, but not this world's military. I want you in mine. Wow. I want you in my military. And that my whole mindset on being a soldier just changes. I want to be a soldier for Christ. I want to be a soldier of God.
Right.
Because Christ is pictured leading on a white horse into battle with a name only he knows. I think that's in the book of Revelation. And then you have Michael, the chief prince, I think.
Yeah, prince.
Yeah, prince, my bad. Chief prince of all he's leading the army too, right after Jesus. And I just want to be like him. I want to be someone you can look up to, someone who can love God and serve him perfectly. And that's what I strive for. I strive for the fact that one day I can love God perfectly. But I even talked to God about that, and he says, Michael, that is a great goal to have, but you have to understand that you can only do that after you die. You can get close to it in this life, but don't beat yourself up too much because you're human and you sin and you make mistakes, but you always rebound from those mistakes. You always go to confession, and that's what counts.
Right.
So that's that's and the reason why I like Michael so much is because I think of him as like my brother.
Right.
Like he's been through struggles. He's been through this. He's had to face Satan himself, and he's fighting the devil just kind of like we are with our temptations and stuff. And he's always been there for me. And he's not like a popular person that's like thinks only of himself. He puts God first.
Right. And
that's exactly what I want to do. I want to put God first. I want to protect him with everything I have, everything he is, and I just want to be like him. And there are so many other great angels and saints to be like. You have Gabriel, Raphael, you have all this saint. I mean, no matter what saint anyone chooses, there's a good reason on why they're saint.
Yeah.
But my favorite saint is Saint Michael the Archangel, because I want to be a soldier like him for God.
That's a beautiful answer, Mikey. And I want to say thank you so much for coming on. Again, getting to hear from another young person who's so devout in his faith, because it's inspirational. Because it's one thing for us to sit in here and be in theology class and stuff like that, but it's another thing to see our peers who are living the faith to the best of their ability. So I want to say thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Keenan.
Of course. So guys, before you click off this video, please click the red subscribe button down below. Please go to the new website, kineticcatholicministries.com. There's so many awesome things you can do on there. All 3 of our social medias are in the description below. And then please comment, because we want to get your thoughts, not just on this video, but on suggestions for future videos, something that you would like to hear about, or a saint that you would like to hear about for the future. Again, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Mikey, for coming on. This was Keaton Gummerson of Kinetic Catholic Ministries, Season 13, Episode 13. I will see you all next week, and hi, Brielle.